Hello, everyone, once again. This is Rob. Welcome back to Media Awareness. Before I continue, a reminder the fundraiser continues. For those of you new to my channel or unaware, I am a disabled individual and I use a motorized wheelchair/scooter all day, every day for my independence, and I need your help. My insurance will not cover anything with regard to my scooter as they view it as a quote luxury item end quote. Despite the fact that I am unable to walk whatsoever, in addition to being unable to use any other type of scooter or power chair, or even a standard wheelchair for that matter, as I only have limited dexterity in one hand. In addition to that, I do not have a backup scooter or wheelchair to rely on at the current time. So if my scooter should malfunction, as it has in the past, I will yet again be a fish out of water, a scenario I want to avoid at all costs. With that stated, below the title of this video in the description below, as well as in a separate section below the information pertaining to this video, you will find a spot fund link. It is a fundraiser. It's easy to contribute. It takes a few seconds, and any and all help is welcome. I cannot stress that enough. Even $5 or $10 can make all the difference in the world, and you can even contribute anonymously. The purpose of the fundraiser is to both assist me with the ongoing refurbishing of my existing scooter, as well as to help me save for the purchase of a new scooter. I arrived at these conclusions following a malfunction that disabled the battery charging mechanism and it needed replacement. And for roughly 2 weeks, I needed to be pushed around my own home by family and friends, which severely limited my independence. However, it was that long overdue wake up call that I need a backup plan, and the backup plan is to have a brand new scooter to use moment to moment, day to day, every day, and my existing scooter completely refurbished, waiting in the wings to be used at a moment's notice if necessary, when necessary. Additionally, my wheelchair van is inoperative whatsoever. It has been deemed as unrepairable, and therefore I'm saving for a new wheelchair van as well. So any and all help is welcome. And I do want to extend a gracious thanks to those who have contributed thus far, in addition to those who plan on contributing, as your contributions have and will make a world of difference in my life. Thank you all. I love you all. If you're not yet subscribed to Media Awareness, my channel, please consider subscribing and becoming part of the Media Awareness family. I'd love to have you. Additionally, if you do subscribe, please be sure to click the bell icon. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video, much like this one. So this is going to be a brief review of the Beatles Anthology as it currently airs on Disney Plus. There is no home release in sight in terms of this being released on Blu-ray or DVD, to my knowledge at this time. Unfortunately, so those of us who are Beatles fans will not be able to own it unless we can obtain those lovely bootlegs that we always tend to do as fans of bands. Um, However, uh, if you have the original box set from the 1990s of the DVD set, that's great. I don't have it. I watched this series originally in 1995 as it aired, episode by episode. And I was one of those people that was really excited for Free as a Bird and Real Love at that point in time. And I enjoyed both tracks. Um, it was nice to hear new Beatles songs and to hear them uh, done with George, Paul, and Ringo, along with the existing audio of John. Of course, that has been cleaned up for the physical release and the streaming release of the 2025 Anthology audio. But the um, the original DVD set is something that I feel is going to become a collector's piece in lieu of having a physical release of the 2025 version. And from my understanding, the 2025 version is slightly trimmed down from the original 1995 version that aired, um, simply to make it more palatable for a younger audience, and the streaming audience, if you will, as a whole. With that said, I thoroughly enjoyed watching the anthology series. I do have some gripes, they are small, and one has to do with Strawberry Fields Forever being referenced and mentioned, but the whole recording process surrounding it was not gone into in detail as it was in The Complete Beatles, which was a 2 hour documentary that was available, I believe, in the 1980s or 90s. I know I videotaped it on TV, and then I subsequently was able to own a copy on VHS of it later on. But um, that covered George Martin talking about how John Lennon recorded one version of Strawberry Fields, came back a few days later, recorded a separate version in a different key and different tempo, and then came back a few days later and asked George if he could combine the two pieces. I feel that that would have really been beneficial to have in this anthology series, as it not only uh, reinforced how important George Martin was to the Beatles as a producer and engineer, but also how the band as a whole and separately as individuals, how their minds would change regarding certain material they recorded, um, and different visions they had for this material. Uh, I think that I'm going to skip around, but I feel that episode 9 of the anthology, which was, I guess, the newest edition, I don't believe it was available with the original airing of this, to my knowledge. And that's from what I'm also seeing from other people's reviews. Uh, it was interesting to see this footage of George Harrison while he was still alive, and Ringo and Paul meeting with Jeff Lynne to record and sort of resurrect these songs that John had not completed that were given to Paul or George. They were unclear on who gave what to who, and they couldn't really recall, as far as what I could discern from this particular episode. But reportedly, Paul was given a cassette from Yoko, and uh, they did their best to extract the audio and in the 1990s to give us Freeze a Bird and Real Love, and of course, now and then what they tried to record and do what they could with, but they weren't able to do so at that point in time. And this is where I also have a problem because the anthology kind of ends with that, with that session, and uh, I feel like they could have tacked on um, how the technology that Peter Jackson had used for the Get Back documentary was used to then uh, allow Paul and Ringo to complete Now and Then, which was, the final Beatles track, if you will. Um, because none of that footage was really in this anthology. I feel like that could have been added, you know, saying like years later we have this technology, we used it to clean up the mix, to clean up John's vocals, and to be able to finally record Now and Then. Um, but that wasn't there. And there was footage of Jeff Lynne working with George and Paul on these mixes of Free as a Bird and Real Love, which was nice to see. But we didn't get any of the newer footage of Paul and Ringo working on Now and Then, which was previously released on YouTube and Disney as well. But it would be nice to have that in the anthology sort of closing chapter. Um, because it really leaves you with just this open space with Now and Then not being completed. Um, and now it is. So I think that would have been nice to have that included, that footage of Paul and Ringo doing that together and issuing that as a single. I also feel that they should have uh, included some footage of Paul talking about Let It Be Naked, which was the alternate version of Let It Be, which was issued in the early 2000s, to my knowledge, and was a different mix of the Let It Be album because Paul was never happy with the original mix having been done by Phil Spector without the band's input really. Now, with that being said, that was something else that wasn't really gone into in detail with this anthology, and it was something that was mentioned in the Complete Beatles, which was the 2-hour documentary I referenced. And that was the fact that Phil Spector was given hundreds of hours of tape to sift through to put together a cohesive album for the Beatles that sounded representative of them as a band. And he did a remarkable job, in my opinion. Let It Be is one of my favorite Beatles albums. If not my favorite Beatles album. Let It Be Naked is okay, but I'm partial to the original. Um, and uh, if they were gonna release anything, I think they could have released an EP of the rooftop performance separately. I know it's probably available with the Get Back um, documentary um, audio version of that. But the the rooftop performance, and I did a review of the Let It Be film uh, when it was airing a year or so ago or 2 years ago. I forget when it aired. I did review it here on my channel, though it is somewhere. I did more of a compare and contrast, however, between that and Peter Jackson's Get Back. Because I felt like Get Back was more informative, was more all inclusive. yes, it's a lot longer. It by a ridiculous amount of time. But I feel like that time flowed effortlessly the way he mixed it all together, the way it was done. And it gave you an insight into how the writing process of Let It Be and the performance aspects came together, which we do not really get at all with this anthology at all either. Uh, it it touches on the Levy sessions. It um, doesn't go into enough detail, in my opinion, and I don't really know why that's the case. Um, I remember watching the anthology when it aired, and having that bother me at that point in time as well. Uh, because I had watched the complete Beatles over and over and over again, and pretty much memorized the documentary from beginning to end. So having that in my mind and going through and watching the anthology in 1995 as it aired, I I was a little um, annoyed at the time, as well as really I was scrutinizing it for details that I knew existed, and I was a little disheartened that those things were not included. Uh, is it worth watching on Disney Plus? Yes, it is. Would it be nice to have a physical release of this on Blu-ray, DVD, whatever, for our home collections? Yes, it would, because the audio and video are both cleaned up. Now, people have complained that the black and white footage looks washed out, and that the color footage looks as good as it's going to. I don't have a problem with the black and white footage. Um, I didn't think it looked washed out at all. I guess they were maybe saying in comparison to their copies of the DVD set from the 1990s. I don't know. Um, all I know is that it's a good overview of the Beatles. It's not complete by any means. We don't get, like I said, we don't get any reference to now and then being completed. We don't get anything regarding that session and how Ringo and Paul worked together and how Paul attempted to emulate George Harrison's slide guitar to do a solo on that. None of that is present with this anthology, and I feel like it could have been added in really simply at the end, but it was not. This footage was not in there. So those are my issues. Really, it's a good if you don't know anything about the Beatles, I feel that it is an essential um, experience to watch it, as it really does give you an insight into the history of the band. Um, and they do cover the early days rather well, in terms of the Beatles being a five-piece band initially, with Paul, George, and John playing guitar, Pete Best on drums, and Stuart Sutcliffe playing bass guitar. Um, and this is a story that was actually told in a film called Backbeat, which was released in the 1990s. And it's a fantastic film. If you're interested in the early days of the Beatles and their performing in Hamburg and honing their skills as a band over the course of time, it's an essential watch. Um, and it really is a great uh, biopic. It's a great biopic. As is Lennon Naked, starring Christopher Eccleston of Doctor Who fame. Um, that really covers Lennon's later days with the Beatles, going into his early solo career, rather well. Uh, but those, in addition to this anthology, are very good and worth watching as a whole if you're curious about the history, like I said. If you want more in depth knowledge into the composing aspect of these songs and or albums and the arranging of different songs and pieces and going through this, I'd recommend watching Peter Jackson's Get Back documentary, which is still up on Disney Plus, because that really gives you a thorough insight into the writing process, what the band went through to make the Let It Be album, and going through the whole process, doing the rooftop gig, and then not having the album come out until well after the band had disbanded, because Phil Spector had to work on it and um, go through so many hours of tape. We're talking hundreds of hours, like I said. That's an epic undertaking to find usable material for an album. So I really applaud uh, Phil Spector as a producer for doing that and for giving us such a cohesive album in terms of the original Let It Be album. But yeah, if you're just a casual Beatles fan, the anthology may not be for you. It'd be something I would say put on in the background. You may learn something that you didn't know, or you may hear a song that you never heard and might want to add it to one of your playlists or seek out the album it's on or something of that nature. But I think that the anthology itself is more for historic preservation and fans like myself that enjoy both documentaries as well as historic accounts of different things, in this case, the Beatles, um, and their influences, and just a bunch of other things as well. It is a good documentary, it is not a great documentary. I will say that. If I was to rate this on a scale from 1 to 10, I would give the Beatles anthology probably a 7. In comparison, the complete Beatles, the documentary I've referenced a few times, I would give that an 8 or 9 on a scale of 1 to 10. Yes, it's shorter, but it really covers key points rather well. Um, so, yeah. And as far as the actual Let It Be uh, film, my thoughts on that are on one of my videos, I did a review, as I stated, which became, as I stated as well, more of a compare and contrast with Peter Jackson's Get Back. Inadvertently, but something that couldn't be helped given it was the same material being covered. So there you have it, my review of the Beatles Anthology. This is not an all-encompassing review as others have done. I know there was one person who went episode by episode, comparing it with their DVD of the 1995 version of this anthology. And I actually felt like that was a bit of overkill. I wanted to make this a simple video, something that you just get an idea of what is there and whether or not it's worth watching. If you're curious at all about the Beatles, watch it. It's really enlightening. It could be more enlightening, but it is enlightening as it is. And it's enlightening enough to maybe prompt you to want to hear a certain song or pick up a certain album or something of that nature. Um, so yeah, there you have it. The Beatles Anthology, currently airing on Disney Plus, and there are 9 parts. So um, it is lengthy, but watch one a day as I did, or one or two, all depending on how much it grabs you and draws you in. Because I found myself going through watching an episode and a half, a couple episodes a day, all depending on how drawn in I was at that point in time. Also, I'd like to add that I do have the original Beatles DVD anthology box set on my Amazon Media Awareness wish list, linked below in the description, as well as the remastered anthology audio, volumes 1 through 4 there as well. Just in case anyone is curious or wants to um, have those sent my way for review, I'd be happy to review them and add them to my ever-growing Beatles collection. Um, as I am a Beatles fan, and I do want to also obtain the Beatles mono mixes in the event I am listening to the music and don't want to hear vocals on one channel and music on the other. That's always been a pet peeve of mine. Um, but it's a small pet peeve and a small price to pay for great music. Nevertheless, the fundraiser continues for me and my wheelchair, along with my wheelchair van. Please do what you can. I would greatly appreciate it. I am really hoping to um, be able to have a, a new scooter to use on a day-to-day basis and my existing scooter just on the side in the event I need it, um, and completely refurbished at that. That way it's a backup that is reliable until I will be able to get parts to fix the new one if necessary. So it is an ongoing process, unfortunately, and unfortunately, um, because I live in Pennsylvania, specifically, specifically, uh, the insurance will not cover any of it. So, yeah, any and all help is welcome, and I will see you all again soon. Have a wonderful morning, noon, or night, wherever you are. Take care. Bye.